My name's Howard Hall. I'm the founder and CEO of a Leeds-based infrastructure, cloud, and software business called DTP, based about a mile out of the city centre in Hunslet. Although we're looking to move at present, so we may find ourselves in a new HQ in Armley in the not too distant future. But today is all around cyber threats, and I won't steal our keynote speaker's thunder, but it's about the sort of threat within your business already. But with that, so finish by just saying again, welcome to the session, and welcome to Leeds Digital Festival, if this is your first session. With that, I'll pass over to our speaker to introduce himself. So, Javid, over to yourself.
Oh, thank you, Howard, and thank you everyone for being here. It's a pleasure to see you virtually. So today I'll be speaking a bit about social engineering, why it's your biggest threat, how it works, and what we can do to prevent against it. This is my vanity slide, I suppose. It just hopefully puts you at ease that I kind of know what I'm talking about. I suppose that's the purpose of these slides. Just that. I don't have a company slides because I think that's just another vanity purpose. But I work for KnowBe4. What KnowBe4 is, the world's largest security awareness and training vendor. So, we live, breathe, eat. Our mission is really, how can you help people make better risk decisions and not be a threat within your organization? And, if they're making the right choices, then hopefully they can become an asset. But that's kind of like the mission. The mission is a big one out there as everything moves towards digital or our whole lives. You can actually leave your house and not interact with anyone, not talk to anyone, and only have your mobile phone. And you can literally fly across the world and check into a hotel and take an Uber and take your plane and everything just with the power of a phone. You can even I was looking the other day, there's even a feature on Uber where you can ask your driver not to talk to you or not put on music or what have you. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. You don't need to interact with anyone at all, which, if you're old like me, it's a bit of a shame, because you kind of feel like, having those social skills is really important. But this is just the nature of where we're going. And because everything is digitalized and, everything requires an app or some human interaction, if you can compromise that human, bad things can happen. So something like this could happen. There was a CEO of a hedge fund in Australia. They were looking in their calendar, a meeting notification popped up. They clicked on the Zoom link and nothing happened. So they assumed maybe the meetings got cancelled or something. In actual fact, that was a malicious link. And the way they had it set up was that if there was a calendar invite that came in, it would automatically just populate it into the calendar, and so you don't need to manually go and accept it and what have you. So because of that, the criminals got access to the CEO's credentials. There was no MFA in place, so they were then able to send emails on behalf of the CEO to the finance department and say, hey, can you send a few $1 million here and there and what have you. And they were able to steal some money. They were able to recover, the company was able to recover some other money. But because trust dropped in the organization, some of their biggest investors pulled out. And as a result, the organization folded. So, this is like one of those examples of a very clear example of literally one click bringing down an entire organization. We see lots of these sorts of attacks that are going on. So in the UK, over the last few weeks, we saw Manchester, and a few weeks before that, the Met Police getting some sort of breach. We've seen schools being hit more and more. There's casinos in Vegas were attacked, and this was really interesting because apparently it was all down to a 10-minute phone call that caused this to be successful. We see scammers also resorting to lots of emotional laws. So this is a really good example. So the Queen died, and criminals just jumped on it immediately. They were like, do you want to commemorate Her Majesty? And people were like, of course, I want to do something to commemorate. And then it's like, buy this NFT. And so it's kind of like playing on two emotions at the same time. One, on one side, you feel like you're commemorating her, or honoring her memory. On the other hand, it's like, an NFT, I heard these go up in value, I could make a lot of money. And this is like a central theme to a lot of scams. They will try to bypass your logical thinking and just get you to emotionally react. And if you can get people to react emotionally to something, they will, they're a lot more easier to fool. We've seen things like this happen, where a hospital was forced to shut down after a ransomware attack. And then if you look at all the reports out there, like the Verizon data breach report or other independent reports, a lot of them all just say that, human error is a growing issue. It's the number one cause. So the question then is, why do people fall for social engineering attacks? We hear about these attacks all the time, and every now and then people are always telling you, even your bank will be saying, like, we will never call you, and yet people still fall for the phone calls that they receive, or don't click on suspicious links, and people still click on links. So why do people fall for social engineering attacks? And I think it's really easy to become lazy when it comes to trying to come to a solution to this. It's really easy. It's really, they call it the hyperactive what and the lazy why, which is like, we're very good at asking what happened, what happened, what happened. Oh, you clicked on a link. Oh, you answered someone's phone call. Oh, you plugged in a USB. But we get very lazy when we try to get to the why part of why this thing happens. So as an example, if I ask, why did the chicken cross the road? For most of you, I can guarantee there's two assumptions that are being made, at least, with your answer. One is that you assume that there's only one chicken, and you also assume that there's only one reason for it to cross the road. If you change it and remove those assumptions, be a bit less lazy with the why, you come up with a whole bunch of other criteria. So I think in security, sometimes we do this thing where we think, oh, people are just like dumb, and that's why they click on a link, or they're lazy, or they don't care about security. And what these do is it creates so many assumptions. It fails to factor in all the other critical things that influence people's decision making. And also, our own brains actually work against us. And many of you might have seen something like this. It's like, which line is the longest? And of course, they're all the same length. It's just the arrowheads that make it appear that they're different lengths. But if you remove these grid lines, your eyes are doing something weird. So part of your brain recognizes that they are the same length, but then your eyes, and translating that visually, it becomes quite a challenge, and you start seeing them as different lengths. Same thing with this, like, for most people, the vertical line will appear longer than the horizontal line, and even though, again, they are both the exact same length. And framing things in the right context is super important. So if you receive a phone call from a scammer, depending on where you are and who they claim to be, that could have a massive impact on how you respond or how you receive that thing. So if you just made a big purchase and then you get a call from someone claiming to be from your bank, you're more likely to believe them to be from your bank, because in your mind, it could be a complete coincidence that they're calling you just after you've made a big purchase, but you make that connection. If you're at work and you get a call from the CEO, or someone claiming to be the CEO, that's quite believable as well. So framing things in the right way is what criminals are really, really good at. So you can see this scribble. If I put the letters A and C to either side, it looks like the letter B. But if I put the numbers 12 and 14 to either side, suddenly it looks like the number 13. So it's the same scribble, but depending on how it's framed, the context in which it's presented, you will see it and perceive it as something else. And this is again, is like when we see people in their work environment, when they're busy, it's like end of quarter or end of year, and someone's saying, here's that sales order you asked for, here's the invoice you needed, this needs to be paid immediately. It's a far better environment for criminals to be more successful in convincing someone to take an action that's not in their best interest. I love this sort of slide. It says the phenomenal power of the human mind, according to a research at Cambridge University, It doesn't matter in what order the letters of a word are. The only important thing is that the first and last letter be in the right place. The rest can be total mess, and you can read it without a problem. So this is a really good example of the human's brain's autocorrect feature. It basically looks at it and says, oh, well, it's, this is what the word should be, so I'm going to correct it for you. It's trying to be helpful. And this is why when sometimes we see like a domain is misspelt, or the URL is not how it should be. Instead of saying Microsoft, it's Microoft, or whatever, it's missing a letter, or some letters are transposed. Our brain, what it does, is auto-correcting it for us. So we look at it, we see the logo, we see the thing, and automatically our brain is like, that should say Microsoft, or it should say whatever, Google, or whatever brand it might be, Netflix, and it corrects it for you, which is why so many people will fall victim to these kinds of attacks as well. Even though in hindsight, you can say, aha, that was misspelt. How could you be so, ignorant to not spot it? But the truth is that when it's not a question of intelligence, it's a question of our brains just correcting these things for us. It's like if I show you this, immediately, very few of you would have immediately seen this and read Coca-Cola. Immediately your brain would have said, oh, that says Coca-Cola. Another way to showcase how the brain works in two ways that is, competing with each other, is that if you look at these words and you try to not read the word, but you just read say what the color, the font is. So if I see this top left one, it's green, and then black, and then red. I was going to say blue, but you can see how it begins to get challenging, because your brain's trying to read the word, but the instruction is read the color. And again, these are things that criminals rely on a lot. They know that in speed, or in haste, or in that immediate reaction time when people are in work, they're going to do something that isn't asked. So what do we need employees to do? What do we need our colleagues to do? How do we all become safer? And what we don't want to do is try to train everyone to become a security expert, because that's not going to happen. There's two broad categories that we want them to fall into. The first category is what we call recognize and report. And if you've got a reporting button or something like that, that's great. But we want people to recognize when something looks a bit suspect. Now, we don't need them to be 100% accurate all the time. We don't need them to be correct. We just need them to say, I've got this email, it's claiming to be from a partner. I've got this phone call, it's claiming to be from the CEO, or whatever. I'm not sure. Let me report it, and let someone that does have the tools and the capability to investigate it further to get back. Now, the thing with reporting is that it needs to be a complete loop. So whenever someone reports, they want to hear back from whoever they reported to. So the security team should be proactive in getting back to them, say, thank you for reporting. Because of you, our organization is more secure. This was, in fact, an attack, and thank you. Or it was an attack, but keep up the good work. And that kind of feedback loop is super, super important. And also it builds that culture. Otherwise, people are like, I report something, it goes into a black hole, I never hear back from it, and they're going to stop reporting. So we want to get people to recognize when everything seems like an issue and report it. The second thing is we want to build up digital hygiene and good practices. So we have this in our personal lives, hopefully, and we just need to make it a sort of like digital habit. So things like backing up your data, strong passwords, MFA, password vault, maybe not oversharing on social media, checking the links before you click on them, or attachments, and before you download them. All these kinds of things are like good baseline behaviors that we want everyone to get. And this isn't just for people within the organization, but we want these behaviors to be things that people take home as well and share with their families. Unfortunately, what tends to happen is what we do is like we just bombard people with training upon training upon training, thinking that's what's going to change behaviors. And training alone doesn't change behavior. So what we need to do is think more like marketers in that sense and less like trainers. So, it's one of those things like, we need to break down the core behaviors that we're asking people to change and make it repeatable and simplified. So, if you grew up in the 80s like I did, you probably remember the, clunk clink, even on the shortest trips, as a campaign to get people to wear seatbelts. And of course, there was the law that was put into place, but then it's reminders. It was on the billboards, it was on the radio, it was on the TV, and it was just reinforced over time. And then what happened is that people adopted that behavior. They started adopting it. And it became normal. What that done then is it creates a culture of everyone putting on their seatbelt. So then when I had kids, they didn't need to be taught through a TV or a billboard or anything. They just learned through observing my behavior or other adults' behaviors. And now they get into the car and they put on their seatbelt. And this is what we mean by when we've created a culture of security or safety, is where imagine in your workplace, everyone or people start locking their machine when they walk away. Other people start observing that behavior and they start locking their machine when they walk away, even if it's to the printer or to what have you. And then when a new person joins that office and they observe that everyone is locking their machine when they walk away, they're going to start locking their machine. You don't need to give them specific training or anything. That's part of your culture. You can't change everything. You can't boil the ocean in one go. You can only change a couple of behaviors, to maybe three if you're lucky, at any one point in time. So be very narrowly focused on what you're doing and how you do it. Storytelling is a really, really effective way of getting the message across. Here at KnowBe4, we have a series called like The Inside Man. There's 5 seasons now. There's only 4 posters there, but there's 5 seasons out now. And it's like a drama. They're like 10-minute episodes. It's a proper engaging drama. And at the end of episode, there's like some security learnings, like, did you see the spy, tailgated someone in, or, someone plugged in a USB without checking it, or what have you. And these are proven to be really, really popular. So again, it's leaning more on the marketing side, engaging people through good content that then resonates with them and creates those water cooler conversation moments and what have you. Not everything needs to be a technical fix or a mandatory fix. We can just build in a lot of nudges to get people to adopt the behavior that we want them to. So things like, putting your recycling bin right next to your general waste bin is a really good idea, because people are going to go throw stuff away anyway. And at that point, it only takes them 2 seconds to split out their recyclables from their from their general waste. The middle picture is a good one. It's like, just shows you that visually that, oh, if you take the stairs, you're going to burn calories, and it's not many, but it's a little nudge in the right direction. And the image on the right is that of a password meter. And this is like when you're creating a new password for a website, you start typing in your password and it goes from not great to great, or it goes from a sad face to a smiley face, or it goes from red to green. And these have shown to be really, really effective, because people like to get that smiley face or that star or that validation that, oh, look, I'm doing something that's good. So even without technically forcing people to have a strong password, you can nudge people to having a good password. And all of this, I think, is sometimes far more valuable than actual training itself. Is like building in these your system architecting in a way that it helps people make the right choice, and it makes it easy for them. And all of this thing, works really well. Like, we see that if you send out a phishing email initially to an organization where people haven't had any training, about a third of them will probably click on that phishing email. But with regular training and with a regular sustained marketing type campaign, you can actually bring that down significantly. So within 3 months of training, that can come down to 18%, 18.5%, and on average. And after a year, that can come down to below 5%, or around 5%. And this is like based on a data set of 12.5 million users. It's users in around the world, every country. So it's not like a limited data set. It's a it's a proven methodology that works. The final point I'd just like to make is that of culture and culture change. I spoke about it slightly when we spoke about seatbelts, but I'm reminded of Martin Luther King and his famous speech where he said, "I have a 7-point strategy to go about." He didn't. He just said, "I have a dream." And the reason he didn't go about saying I have a 7-point strategy, because culture change you're dealing with people. It's not the same as patching a machine. It's not the same as updating your software. It's something where you have to repeat something for a long period of time, consistently, and that's what causes that behavior change, which leads to your change in culture. And so this is why, like, so things like doing like social engineering your users, like through phishing emails or other means, is great, and then giving them the training and the awareness is great, and then once they begin to change their behaviors individually, that should have a knock-on effect to others around them, and then that creates your culture when you get masses of people adopting that same behavior. So I think creating security champions, identifying and creating security champions is a great method to go about that. So you find people within the organization who aren't necessarily in the security team, but they have like this, they have a tendency to want to support or be part of it, and you can engage them and encourage them to be more active. Sharing stories from the top. So if you can get your execs to share any story, like a time when they got phished, or they got a phone call and they almost gave up their credentials, or they did give up their credentials and then they notified the security team. It has a lot of benefits. Like it removes the stigma associated with, well, anyone could get attacked, or anyone could fall for these things. And it also reinforces the fact that, hey, if as long as you report something, even if you've given up your credentials or clicked on a link or downloaded a malicious file, let the security team know so they can then isolate things and they can like minimize any damage that gets caused. And finally, it's a lot about consistency. It's not about intensity. So a lot of times people will go out and they'll spend like, okay, month of October, Cybersecurity Awareness Month, let's have a big campaign and a big push. And then they stop at the end of October. So 1st November, it's all forgotten about. That's not going to change anything. That's a bit like me going to the gym for the first 2 weeks in January, and then like, come 6 months later, I'm wondering why I'm not really, any fitter, because consistency is more important than intensity. So with that, I'd like to thank you for your time and attention, and happy to take any questions now.
Just come off mute and off video. Thanks, Javid. That was really insightful. I think hopefully that was also of a lot of interest and resonated with the attendees as well. So I've got a couple of questions really that's have come in, and there's one that's come in live while you were talking as well. So you talked about culture a little bit and the culture of security. Simulated phishing, because I was seeing an awful lot of phishing, attacks at present. I delete tons every day, I'm pretty sure. Just don't look right. Simulating them internally, and is that a big contributor towards building that culture of security?
Yeah. So I think I'd say yes, but I'd say there's a couple of caveats there. Whenever the security team want to embark on this program of sending out simulated phishing, I'd say let your colleagues know that you intend to do it, why you're doing it, and what the benefits are, because no one likes to feel stupid. And if you just blindly send them out a phishing test and they fall for it, and they're going to be like, oh, the security team was just trying to catch me out. So set the baseline first as to why you're doing this. But then when you do it, once that is explained and understood, you see it's a fantastic learning opportunity. It's far more effective than saying to someone, oh, here are some of the things to look out for in a phishing email. You actually send them a phishing email and say, like, did you spot it? And this gets people into that habit of like, okay, let's scrutinize something. Let's have a look at it. Okay, let's report it, or let's ask a colleague next to me to have a second look at it, and what have you. So these things, like, will raise the individual awareness, and slowly you'll see quite rapidly in the big scheme of things, you'll see the behaviors changing, which is what we want to happen. We want people to build up that sense of skepticism. And once that happens, you'll see people, like, it becomes a normal thing for people to just talk about, like, oh, I got this email, it's probably a phishing email. And once those conversations become normal, you see that becomes part of your culture, where like people are more open to talking about, hey, I just got attacked, or someone's trying to do this, or what have you. And it's like, okay, here's how we deal with it. So that's why it's such a fundamental building block and part of your social engineering training testing.
Cool. Question from the floor, from John, just around VPN. So what VPN do you guys use? He's saying that he uses NordVPN and finds that some sites block him silently because he's using the VPN. I don't know if there's anything you can comment on with that.
So yeah, there's lots of VPNs out there. I can't really comment on any particular brands. Certain ones are better for your corporate setup and what have you. Yeah, there is a problem with, like, you use VPNs and sometimes you get blocked from certain sites, but that's just, I suppose that's just the nature of a lot of VPNs. But just if you find a reputable one, you're gonna have less issues. And I think especially for work stuff, like, have a corporate VPN sort of strategy put in place with an enterprise grade VPN provider, and that should get rid of most of your challenges.
Cool. Another question. AI, and obviously it's all over our everyday lives at present, and is probably going to become more prevalent as we move forward, and of course is being used by bad actors. Are we seeing an awful lot more AI generated threats? And also, on the back of that, I guess the second part of that question, do we need more training, and is it different in terms of the type of training that we need to deal with these AI generated threats? Excuse the dog barking in the background as well, by the way.
That's all good. That's all good. So AI is definitely, like, everyone's dabbling with it at the moment. You see it, like, vendors are using it. Like, you see all your favorite products that you might use, this SaaS service you use. Everyone's like saying, hey, look, we've got an AI feature now. Even I went on LinkedIn the other day and there was something like, let AI help you write a post or something. And I was like, why do I need AI to help that? I suppose that's neither here nor there. Criminals are also beginning to use AI a lot as well. So when it comes to text-based emails, it sort of speeds up their process for them. It removes a lot of those grammatical and typo errors that they might make, especially if English isn't their first language, or whichever language they're trying to target. So it speeds up the process. The advantage is that, from a defender's point of view, is that although it makes it faster and a bit slicker from the attacker perspective, the core principles of what the red flags are remain the same. Is it unexpected communication from someone you normally don't maybe receive communication from? Are they making an ask of you that is strange, or are they trying to get you to respond to something very quickly? All these types of red flags remain the same whether someone's using AI or not. So I think from that perspective, it doesn't change a ton. Where it does change is where they're using new techniques. So things like deep fake videos or audio or images. That's where I think we need to make people more aware that, hey, this is something, because for most people they're like, oh, there's a video call. There's there's Howard. Of course, he's asking me to do something. I'm going to do that. So I think, like, building in that kind of training is something we're going to see more and more needed as time goes on.
Cool. And everything that we do and invest in IT land, we've got to be able to demonstrate that it's giving us a return. Obviously, security and threats such as this are pretty evident in terms of day-to-days. We're seeing people's data being stolen or accessed literally on a daily basis in terms of the IT trade press. I'm sure everybody else is seeing that. But what are the important metrics that we need to really capture around sort of this particular area, and and how do we then leverage those and dovetail those into how we refine our security awareness internally and the training that we're giving our staff members.
Yeah, so I think that's like such a good area to consider, because metrics are, every business wants to understand the ROI on what they're doing, whether they're heading in the right direction. So like the slide I shared earlier, the fish prone percentage, what we call, like, what percentage of employees are going to click on a phishing link. That's a really easy one for us to get, because that's like, a visible information to us. And that shows organizations that, okay, you're reducing the risk. Like, before, a third of your employees were going to click on the link, and now only, like, a fraction of them are going to click. That you've reduced the risk a lot. But I think internally, the other really, really useful metric is to see how many people are actually reporting issues. And I think that is probably an even more powerful metric than seeing how many people don't click on something. So if you've got more people reporting that, hey, this looks like a phishing email, or this sounds like a phishing call, or social engineering call, or something, or I found this USB in the parking lot, what do I do with it? These are far, far more powerful thing, because it shows that people are not only changing their behaviors, but that trust with the security team or the IT team is there, to the point where, your processes are there that they can quickly and easily report things. So I think that is probably one of the key ones to focus on. And then the rest of it depends really on the specific behavior that you're trying to measure or change, and then find specific metrics to see, like, how do we show that people's behavior has changed. And too often I think people fall into the trap of, like, trying to measure people's knowledge retention, which is fine, but just because I know to do something, or just because I'm aware of something, it doesn't necessarily mean that I care about something, or I've changed my behavior. So if I'm driving my car, I can see a speeding sign, like the speed limit, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to slow down just because I see but the behavior change come from, like, building more awareness and empathy, that, like, okay, this is dangerous, there could be a school nearby, there could be other things, and those things are far more effective. So really, it's not like just asking what's the speed limit here, and I say it's 30, but the actual proof is in the behavior change, where, like, I actually slow down to 30 when I enter that zone.
Yeah, interesting. And in terms of the work that you guys are doing, and again, security in our world has always been around perimeters and technology, and this is about training. So in terms of getting sign off, the people who are on the call, getting sign off to investigate this further, would you recommend people going up to the top of the organization to get that, or is it an IT sign off you typically find that then IT owns it, or is it sort of something that goes up to C-suite to get sort of sign off and budget and validation?
Yeah, so it will vary depending on the size of organization and the type that you're operating in. But in many cases, I think it goes quite high to at least a CISO level, or maybe the CIO, even, because it's actually a one of the biggest risks that organizations face is through human error, or people getting social engineered in one form or another, people choosing a poor password, or leaving, like, things just easily accessible. These are things that we wanted to fix, and there isn't always a technical solution to everything. So even like MFA, which is a great control in its own right, but if you can trick someone, and it's happened many times, where someone gets, like, a message claiming to be from IT saying, oh, can you send us your MFA code, and people have given it up, and then their account's been compromised as a result. So no matter what technical controls you have in place, people are going to fall victim. So I think coming at it from a risk perspective is super important, and helping the execs understand that investing in this is kind of not really optional. It's one of those things that it's quite a low cost compared to some technical implementations, but the risk reduction is actually quite significant.
Cool. So it's for me, it's just a no-brainer, isn't it? Really, in terms of spending so much on security, in terms of the technology, and this is low cost, high impact type stuff. So that's the end of the questions that we've got for today. One of the things I'd just like to say is, this is part of Leeds Digital Festival, as we've already mentioned, and I know before have actually just relocated their UK office from Easingwold in the middle of North Yorkshire into the central Leeds, actually not far from the station. So welcome to the Leeds tech community, I think.
Thank you.
Finish it. But yeah, so all it's left for me to do is say, thanks, Javid, for a really insightful presentation and answers to questions, and also thanks to you, our delegates, for attending. We know your time's valuable, and do appreciate you sort of taking time out of your day to come and listen to what I think has been an enthralling session. So with that, we'll say goodbye and enjoy the rest of your day.
Cool. Thank you.